HighBridge, a division of Recorded Books, presents How to Think About AI, a Guide for the Perplexed, by Richard Susskind. Read by Richard Susskind. In memory of my wonderful dad. We invented a computer program capable of thinking non-numerically, and thereby solved the venerable mind-body problem, explaining how a system composed of matter can have the properties of mind. With that, we opened the way to automating a wide range of tasks that had previously required human intelligence, and we provided new methods, computer simulation, for studying thought. We also acquired considerable notoriety and attracted critics who knew in their hearts that machines could not think and wanted to warn the world against our pretensions. Herbert A. Simon, Nobel laureate, referring to work carried out in 1955 to 1956. You insist that there is something a machine cannot do. If you tell me precisely what it is a machine cannot do, then I can always make a machine which will do just that. John von Neumann, 1948. In every cry of every man, in every infant's cry of fear, in every voice, in every ban, the mind-forged manacles I hear. William Blake, London, 1794. None of this book was written by AI, for better or worse. Personal note. I've been thinking about AI since 1981, when I stumbled into the field as a law student at the University of Glasgow. I was writing a dissertation on whether computers might replace judges, and all avenues in my research led me to artificial intelligence. I quickly became hooked and keen to delve deeper, so I left my native Scotland for the University of Oxford and wrote my doctorate there on AI and the law in the mid-1980s. Later that decade, while running the UK Artificial Intelligence Group of a global accountancy and consulting firm, I co-developed the world's first fully operational AI system for lawyers. I've since written several AI-related books, not just on law, but also, with Daniel Susskind, on the impact of AI across the professions, including health, education, tax, audit, architecture, journalism, and more. Today, much of my time is devoted to advising international professional firms and national governments on what AI means for their future. All in all, then, artificial intelligence has been a lifelong preoccupation and fascination. This book is an introductory guide to the subject, and it frequently draws on my own travels in the field. It also borrows from my background in 4 disciplines that converge in AI: philosophy, digital technology, law, and long-term strategic planning, and from my work over the years across the private, public, voluntary, and educational sectors. In what appears to many as an outlandish family business, my 2 sons also spend much of their time thinking and writing about AI. Daniel is an economist, exploring the impact of technology on employment and on economic growth, and Jamie is a lawyer and political theorist, looking at the regulation of AI and its impact on politics. This book includes much of their thinking, which is reflected in my shamelessly frequent citations of their work. While preparing this book, and in thinking intensely about the latest developments in AI, my own perspective shifted. I have for long been optimistic that AI can bring great social and economic benefits. I'm now even more enthused. But as I've immersed myself in recent and staggering advances, I've also become more sharply aware of the range and scale of the threats that AI poses. I now believe that balancing the benefits and threats of artificial intelligence, saving humanity with and from AI, is the defining challenge of our age. Introduction. Marvin Minsky was a professor of computer science at MIT. He was one of the early AI pioneers and the winner in 1969 of the prestigious Turing Award. The following year, in Life magazine, he was quoted as saying that, "Once the computers get control, we might never get it back. We would survive at their sufferance. If we're lucky, they might decide to keep us as pets." I used to think this was funny. I'm not sure now. A different view was set out in The New Scientist in 1986. AI's record of barefaced public deception is unparalleled in the annals of academic study. In the decades since, many scholars and observers have echoed this sweeping indictment, claiming that AI is largely hype. How do we make sense of the gulf between Minsky and The New Scientist? In truth, AI has always divided human beings. Since the mid-1950s, when the term artificial intelligence was first coined, fans and critics have been equally vocal. The tension between the proponents and naysayers extends well beyond the usual conflicts that simmer between thinkers and scientists of different schools. There is incalculably more at stake here, because, to put it starkly, AI will heavily shape the future for humans and society. But does AI represent the apotheosis or the antithesis of humanity and civilization? Will artificial intelligence provide the answers to mankind's gravest challenges, from climate change to global health, or does it signal the descent of biological man? I don't have pat answers to these or many other pressing questions that AI is now prompting. We're all still feeling our way through some agonizingly difficult and unmapped terrain. I'm conscious also that in the coming years there will be questions relating to AI that we are not able to conceive today, questions we haven't yet imagined, relating to problems that haven't yet arisen, from systems that haven't yet been invented. Today we can't see beyond the beam of the headlights that is currently cast by our early understanding of current and emerging technologies. My hope in this maelstrom of uncertainty is to provide listeners with various ways of thinking about AI. These should encourage more informed reflection and debate. This is not a technical book. It is introductory in tone and content. I assume that listeners have no technical knowledge of AI and digital systems. One of my aims, indeed, is to demystify artificial intelligence and public discussion about this remarkable concept, and to offer some assurance that you don't need to be a technology expert to think and talk sensibly about the impact of AI. I expect that many scientists will wince when I skip across issues of great technological interest and complexity. I don't do so lightly. However, I urge that debate about AI and its ramifications shouldn't always be focused on the technological detail. I was spurred to write in response to the frenzy that has followed the launch in late November 2022 of an extraordinary AI system known as ChatGPT, which belongs to a branch of artificial intelligence that is widely called generative AI. Don't worry for now about what this means. ChatGPT attracted 100 million users in 2 months and almost double that figure within 1 year of launch. An avalanche of commentary and speculation has followed. Yet, as I show, many current claims and popular predictions about AI are muddled. There is, for example, a sense from many who are new to the field that generative AI represents the end game, the final destination in the world of artificial intelligence. In truth, we're simply warming up. It is early days for AI. I am concerned that debate and policy-making on AI is being too heavily influenced by technologists and tech entrepreneurs. While the prodigious talent of the best of them cannot be denied, some pronounce too dogmatically on issues like ethics, social impact, international relations, and regulation. Moreover, they are often too vested in how and why they themselves do AI to speak reliably or objectively about its future and effects. My aim at this remarkable juncture in human history is to bring greater clarity to our everyday conversation about AI, which explains why my focus is on how we, as humans, might usefully think about AI. The book is organized in 5 parts, each corresponding to what I take to be the basic building blocks in thinking clearly about AI. Part 1 is devoted to understanding what AI is all about. Chapter 1 suggests and shows that a good way to climb the AI learning curve is to look at its history and trajectory over the past 75 years. To put some flesh on the bones, Chapter 2 zooms out and encourages AI to be viewed in the broader context of more general developments in digital technology. Part 2 invites listeners to think differently. Chapter 3 identifies two broad but deeply contrasting ways of looking at AI, one focusing on the outcomes of AI systems, the other preoccupied in several ways with the underlying processes. Chapter 4 unravels various confusions that flow from ignoring the differences between these two perspectives, not least over the question of whether humanity is doomed because of AI. Chapter 5 turns to machine capabilities for which we don't currently have a vocabulary, and along the way explores some apparent limitations of AI systems. Part 3 is more practical, focusing on making AI work. Chapter 6 argues that to grasp the impact of AI on labour, we need to think well beyond the automation and substitution of current human activity. Rather, we must grasp the way that AI can transform how we work and sometimes even eliminate the problems to which many human jobs are currently devoted. Chapter 7 warns against simply grafting AI onto existing organizations and calls instead for radical structural change to our institutions, including our health services, justice systems, schools, and universities. Looking to the downside of AI, Part 4 confronts the risks arising from AI. Chapter 8 categorizes the wide range of relevant threats, and Chapter 9 offers some thoughts on tackling them. Part 5 contemplates the future for humanity when our machines become much more capable. It is more philosophical, speculative, and I expect unnerving. Chapter 10 discusses whether machines can be conscious. Chapter 11 urges that we shouldn't look exclusively at AI when we're thinking about the future. It points to other vital technologies, and in particular to brain-computer interfaces and virtual reality. This leads to consideration of some disconcerting philosophical possibilities relating to the nature of everyday reality. Finally, and again big picture, Chapter 12 suggests we should think of AI in evolutionary and cosmological terms when contemplating its impact on the future of humanity. Each of the chapters confronts issues of great complexity. My hope is not to dispose of the questions asked, but to help listeners to begin their own discussions with family, friends, colleagues, and their governments about the impact of the most consequential set of technologies of our time. Part 1. Understanding AI. Chapter 1. The Summer of AI. The first obstacle to thinking clearly about AI is the extensive commentary on what AI is and is not. My approach here is pragmatic rather than theoretical. There are two broad ways to define artificial intelligence. One is to describe how it works. The other is to describe what it can do. Technologists tend to take the first path. They characterize AI by referring to underpinning techniques and technologies. They often use specialist jargon. They will speak, for example, about neural networks, or large language models, or backpropagation, or graphics processing units, or adversarial machine learning or foundation models. In doing so, they often bamboozle those who are listening. Most people, from decision makers to citizens, have little clue what these terms mean and don't have the technical background to digest the underlying ideas easily, which is why I prefer to take the second path as my starting point. The best way to secure an early foothold in grasping what AI is all about is to be given some practical examples of what AI systems are already doing and are likely to be doing before long. What AI can do. In the early days of AI, in the era of what is sometimes called good old-fashioned AI, we chunked up artificial intelligence into a series of subfields. This was in the 1960s, 1970s, and 1980s. We used quite general labels, and our focus was on broad categories of tasks for which AI was being used. One of these was speech recognition, which aimed to develop systems that could understand words spoken by humans. Systems that could distinguish, for example, between abominable and a bomb in a bowl. Another was translating from one language to another, avoiding howlers like the conversion of the English phrase out of sight, out of mind into Russian as invisible insanity. A related focus was natural language processing, enabling humans to instruct and communicate with computers in everyday human language, with all its ambiguities and imprecisions, rather than by code. Another branch of AI was expert systems. The most popular approach here was to try and capture and model the apparent reasoning and problem-solving processes of the brightest humans, and to embed these in systems. This would enable non-experts to work in various fields at the level of leading experts. Work in 4 other subfields also proved to be foundational. One was game playing, which continues to be a fertile testing ground for AI, and the focus of some of the highest profile advances, not least in chess and Go. Another was robotics, which remains very challenging, although great progress has recently been made. A third was research into vision and perception, systems that could recognize objects, including faces, in the physical world. Lastly, there was automatic programming, systems that themselves could generate other systems. This last one may yet turn out to be the most significant of all, because it marks the shift from machines developed exclusively by humans to machines that can write their own code and so self-improve and even self-replicate. The foundational era of good old-fashioned AI is behind us, and when we talk today about what AI can do, we tend to focus now on more particular tasks, activities, and fields. My own main interest is in the use of AI for professional work. In healthcare, for example, there are AI systems that can diagnose illnesses, interpret scans, recommend treatments, undertake robotic surgery, counsel patients, and assist in drug and vaccine development. AI accelerated the development of Moderna's COVID mRNA vaccine. In law, there are systems that can draft, compare, summarize, and simplify legal documents, as well as offer guidance, answer questions, generate legal arguments, and predict the outcome of court decisions. In tax, systems can produce and file tax returns and create plans and strategies that legitimately minimize tax liability. In education, AI is enabling personalized learning, providing ready access around the world to the finest teaching resources. In architecture, remarkable buildings are being designed by AI systems and even being constructed using 3D printing. Similar advances are being made in management consulting, audit, surveying, actuarial work, and in most other professional and related services such as insurance, banking, and investment management. It's early days for many of these systems. Some are not entirely reliable, although they are improving by the day. Others can already match the performance of individual human experts. Yet others can outperform teams of even the brightest specialists. The use of AI extends well beyond professional and white-collar work, from participating in quizzes to managing power grids, from self-driving cars to co-piloting military aircraft, from optimizing business processes to scheduling plane routes to cut emissions, from determining humans' emotional states to creating lifelike talking faces. Where humans with brains were once needed, AI is increasingly engaged. While many AI systems are standalone and single-purpose, such as medical diagnostic systems, often and increasingly AI is embedded in other systems. For example, mobile phone manufacturers Apple and Samsung claim that their devices are now easier and better to use because they are enhanced by AI. At the same time, AI is being bundled into and integrated with everyday software. Microsoft provides its AI system, Copilot, along with its general office software. This system can draft emails and documents, summarize meetings and email threads, generate presentation slides, create to-do lists, and much else. In practice, this means that most of us will soon have at our fingertips our very own personal assistants and research assistants, helping us to organize our lives and keeping us fully informed. Likewise, we will have our own personal tutors, ready to train us on all sorts of subjects. More, we will have ever-improving AI systems that can answer questions on any topic, and systems that can generate text, polish letters, poetry, articles, lyrics, as well as music, cartoons, line drawings, landscapes, videos, and more. In this spirit, AI will empower humanity. It's not just about making today's white-collar workers more productive and efficient. Much AI is already in daily use, but hidden from us. When online retailers and email adverts suggest movies, books, clothes, or food that we might like, the underpinning technology here, often said loosely to be algorithms, is some form of AI. Likewise, AI is often running in the background when we make job, loan, and insurance applications. In all the major organizations on which we rely, from manufacturing to retail, transport to hospitals, banks to governments, AI systems are in varying stages of operation. These systems are also being used to create new worlds in virtual reality, and even to connect our brains to computers. Chapter 11. Most ambitiously, some AI enthusiasts believe that artificial intelligence will come to the rescue of humanity and help us meet our most serious challenges, from climate change to cancer, poverty to conflict, space exploration to global education, crowded cities to the erosion of democracy. I hope I've said enough to allow us now to come up with some kind of tentative summary of what AI is all about. Bear in mind, and this says a lot about the field, AI scientists themselves disagree endlessly over definitions of artificial intelligence. When 400 AI experts were asked to select from a range of proposed definitions, the most popular was only accepted by 56% of them. So, I start by saying that AI is a branch of digital technology that is devoted to the development and use of systems that can undertake tasks and engage in activities of a sort that we have traditionally thought could only be taken on by humans with our remarkable brains. We must go further now and add that AI systems are increasingly outperforming humans and doing things which are beyond the capabilities of humans. There are some commentators and experts who want to go further still and say that a system is only proper AI if it can be said to be conscious. However, for reasons I lay out later, I think this is not necessary and can cause confusion. One impact of AI systems, as just described, is that they raise new questions in traditional fields. In education, for example, we're wondering, what are we training young people to become? In the investment community, venture capital and private equity specialists are questioning as never before whether businesses in which they are investing belong to industries that might be entirely upended by the time they will want to cash in. In the military, the possibility of autonomous weapons is requiring strategists to revisit basic doctrines of deterrence and defense. The AI infrastructure of nation-states is coming to be regarded as a potential source of military advantage as well as economic differentiation. The advance of AI should also be contemplated in all other fields that take a long view. This doesn't always happen. In discussions about climate change, for example, while a common focus is 2050, rarely have I heard discussion about the relevance of AI for this conversation. There is concern, of course, about AI's increasing hunger for power, but a bigger question perhaps is the extent to which AI systems will have changed civilization and humanity by 2050. According to this book at least, the human condition might be wildly different by that date, and our systems may be unfathomably more capable than humans. This does not diminish the climate challenge, but it does encourage us to take a wider view of what we might want by 2050. AI also, of course, gives rise to a wide range of forbidding risks, threats, and vulnerabilities. These are addressed in chapters 8 and 9. My focus so far, then, is on what AI can and might do. Our next port of call is the question of how AI works. I tackle this in non-technical terms by discussing how artificial intelligence has evolved. A very short history of AI. I should first explain why I choose to steer clear of the detailed operations of AI systems. I do so partly because this book is aimed at a general and so non-technical readership, but more importantly, because the enabling techniques and technologies are changing rapidly. In my view, insight into the bowels of the latest technologies will in the long run be less valuable for most people than insight into what these systems are likely actually to do in the years ahead. New waves of systems and methods will come into vogue. Better than trying to grasp the intricacies of today's techniques is to have a broader sense of the way in which AI has evolved over the years. Better to have a grip on the history and trajectory of AI. To secure this understanding, to give a feel for the advances made in AI, my next step is to run through various landmark achievements in AI over the past 75 years. This is largely a personal view, the story of AI through those advances that I regard as the highlights. Most people know something about AI from science fiction. Some of the finest authors, such as Isaac Asimov, Neil Stephenson, William Gibson, Philip K. Dick, Arthur C. Clarke, anticipated many of the current and emerging uses of artificial intelligence. They foresaw the dangers too, and alongside various TV shows and movies, especially 2001, A Space Odyssey, 1968, Blade Runner, 1982, The Terminator, 1984, and The Matrix, 1999, these writers have to a large extent shaped our expectations and fears of machines and robots to come. AI is not confined to contemporary movies, TV, and fiction. There were hints of artificial intelligence in classical antiquity. In Homer's Iliad, in the workshop of Hephaestus, who made weapons for the gods, there were handmaidens wrought of gold in the semblance of living maids. More than 2,500 years later, there were some notable forays into AI in the 19th century, most notably in Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, 1818, and in Airhorn, 1872, by Samuel Butler. There was also related fiction in the early 20th century, for example in the work of H.G. Wells, most memorably in The War of the Worlds, 1895 to 1897. Some decades later, in 1984, published in 1949, George Orwell set the scene for much of the current conversation about widespread electronic surveillance of citizens in society. AI became non-fiction in 1950 with the publication of Alan Turing's seminal paper, Computing Machinery and Intelligence, where he methodically explored the question, can machines think? I return to this paper in Chapter 10. A few years later, in 1956, a group of scientists assembled in Dartmouth College, New Hampshire, in the US, for a summer workshop. The term artificial intelligence was coined in a funding request written for that event. The main author of the paper was John McCarthy, now widely acknowledged as the person who came up with the term. The Dartmouth event was a gathering of talented Americans. The first international conference on AI was a symposium on the mechanization of thought processes, held in late 1958 at the National Physical Laboratory in Teddington, England. The earliest operational AI system was largely developed before the term artificial intelligence was coined. This was the logic theorist, conceived in 1955 and completed in 1956 by Alan Newell, a computer scientist, and Herbert Simon, an economist. The innovation here was their development of a system that went beyond the number crunching, arithmetic, and code breaking for which computers had been used until that time. Instead, the system engaged in a form of non-numeric, symbolic reasoning, which to some extent simulated human problem-solving. Their system discovered proofs for theorems in symbolic logic. It was this system that Simon was describing, boastfully by his own admittance, in the quotation that appears at the start of this book.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?